Welcome to Scale with Clarity, the podcast for entrepreneurs who are building a business and a life that actually feels good. I'm Brooke Koeninger, fractional CFO, strategist, and mom of three, and I've learned that scaling isn't just about hitting revenue milestones. It's about finding alignment between your big vision and your everyday reality. Each week, you'll hear honest conversations with founders who are redefining success on their own terms. We'll talk about the pivots, the aha moments, and the tough decisions behind the scenes. Plus, the surprising ways entrepreneurship becomes the greatest personal growth journey of all. Whether you're dreaming of leaving corporate, navigating the messy middle, or trying to grow without burning out, this show is here to help you scale with more clarity, confidence, and ease. Because building a business should expand you, not deplete you. Let's scale with clarity together. Hello, everyone. This is a little bit different for those of you that are listening online or on the podcast. I've historically had interviews, and I started thinking, I haven't really told my story. And I've recently gotten so many questions over the last couple months, people reaching out. There's a lot of uncertainty going on right now in just the traditional workforce. There's curiosity about what else you could be doing and what perhaps entrepreneurship or solopreneurship or fractional practices is all about. And I thought I wanted to summarize some of the questions I've been getting, some of the real tactical first steps I think are helpful, and then also share my story to see if it resonates, and the lessons that I've learned. And so, whether we want to admit it or not, a lot of us are feeling unsettled. I've mentioned I've had people reach out to me recently, but, we're watching AI accelerate and quietly wondering which jobs will still exist and which ones won't. We're seeing, restructures, layoffs, roles eliminated overnight. And this isn't fear mongering for you guys. We're all living that. Several of my last companies I've been to are, going through it right now in terms of integrations and buyouts and fights over who's going to buy who. And so even if you're still in your job, you're feeling that uncertainty. And so even if it hasn't happened to you personally, that sense of security that a lot of us were taught to rely on feels a lot shakier than it used to. And here's the thing, it's not just about technology or the economy. We all went through COVID. We know about uncertain, we know about change. But because of that, and because all of us have been through that, there's also been something else that's been building since then. And it's the hustle culture. It's that push through it mentality. It's the belief that we're tired, stressed, or disconnected, and we just need to try harder. And I think a lot of us are quietly saying, I don't want to do it like this anymore. And that's where I was 5 years ago. So I want to tell you a little bit about my story. So 5 years ago, I wasn't necessarily trying to escape my job. From the outside looking in, it looked fine. We were amidst COVID. I left my corporate job in 2021. And even before COVID hit, there was this underlying sense of misalignment. I, at the time, had 2 going on 3 children. And there was this growing sense of, I'm not prioritizing the things that I think I should. But when I do that, it feels like I'm giving up my ambition. It felt like I had to choose one or the other. And the way that played out day to day was my husband and I would have conversations, which would oftentimes lead into arguments about who, I'm using quotes, got to go in early for the early meeting and who had to stay at home and get the kids ready for their day, go and drop off at daycare or school. And getting ready for the day, if you were the parent that was home, let me know if this resonates, it was rushing. It was waking the kids up earlier than they naturally would wake up. It was yelling and pushing and arguments and rushing out of the house and lack of presence, and my own nervous system elevated to try and get to the daycare, to have then inevitably one of my children crying and sad at drop off, and me leaving and sitting in the car and being like, okay, let me get prepared for the second phase of my day, which is my professional job. We were also paying people to, be like take our kids to their after school activities. And no, I didn't need to be at everything, but I did want to be at a lot. I mean, they were, the doctor's appointments and the baseball practice and, the after school or the daycare concerts that, last for 2 songs and inevitably your child doesn't even know the song. But those are the things that just you look back and watch the videos. And I wanted to be there for that. And, the after school, besides the rush and the hustle to go from place to place when I would get home, because I had left work early, I remember getting my kids into their bed and laying next to them but not really being present. So I'd be laying there waiting for them to go to sleep, saying I'd lay with them, but I had my laptop on me and I'd try and catch up with the emails that, I couldn't get to before I left the day. And I remember thinking, I'm nailing this. Like I can multitask. I can, be here with my son and also do my job. But what I came to realize is that I actually wasn't doing either really well. And it's hard to notice what you're missing, especially on the family front, when you're in reactive mode, when you're really just trying to grasp and hold on, and you're not sure of what else is even possible. And so that was kind of it was this low grade anxiety that was kind of living in my body. And, an email would come through late at night or Sunday would roll around and I'd think about the week ahead and I'd get this tightness in my chest and just thinking, I started thinking, is this everything? Most days weren't terrible. I remember coming home and my husband would ask me, how was your day? And I'd say, it's fine. And that almost hit me just as hard as the stressful days, because the stressful moments I could say, oh, it was a point in time, or it was a project that was due, or it was a meeting I just got to get through. But it was those, in the absence of that, what was left was this kind of sense of just everything's fine. And that started sinking in, saying, is that what I really want the rest of my life to be? Not energized, not super excited, not, excited to wake up in the morning and tackle the day, but more numbing myself so that I wasn't overly anxious. I was just fine getting through the day. And there was this realization that I, didn't want to look too closely at, but it sticks out in my mind. All this was kind of going on in the perimeters around, our lives at the time. And COVID hit and, people were losing their jobs and people were really unhealthy and, people were losing their lives. And I remember thinking, who am I to want something different? Who am I? I should be grateful. I should be really happy. I have a healthy family. I've got a house that I love. I've got, a village that can support me in terms of family and friends. And I've got a job that, is still paying me. So I should really be grateful for what I have instead of thinking that there's something different, because in my mind, thinking there's something different meant I had to be, not grateful for what I have. And the pivotal point I would say that came through was when we were doing planning, future planning with my boss, and she was talking about, what would my next role be? And she was asking, would I want her role? And I remember thinking from a title and a compensation standpoint, that would check the box. But I had this real tightening in my chest and this really sinking feeling. And I remember thinking God, no, that's not what I want. The lifestyle is more stress and more time in the office and less time at home and working around the clock and constantly being on. And I knew intuitively, even if I don't want to admit to myself, my nervous system could not handle that. And that was taking me further out of alignment from what I wanted. And so it started this thought process of, what am I working so hard for? If not to get to the next level that my corporate job was leading me to. And so if I was working really, really hard, what was it for? And I wasn't ready to kind of throw in, what's the saying? Baby with the bathwater. I wasn't ready to kind of throw it all in. I didn't know what that looked like, but that was the inkling that started the thought process of what is different. And one of my values, my things that drive me is like this insatiable curiosity about things. And it just opened the door for me to find books and listen to podcasts and reach out to people and do coffee chats and just say like, what is this? And I guess I was lucky enough to have been in consulting. And part of that world is I was surrounded by others who were doing independent consulting. And I remember at the time thinking like, that's even possible. Like you don't have to work for this company. You can kind of pick the projects that you want. And so it just started this breadcrumb thought process of what else could there be? But as I was thinking of that, there were 4 thoughts. Anytime something like that thought crept into my mind about doing something different, one of these 4 would immediately follow. And I'm going to read them slowly because I just want you to notice if any of these resonate for you. So the first one, which I already alluded to, is the thought process, especially amongst COVID, you should be grateful. Other people have it worse. They would love this job in this life. And that kept me where I was. So just think about that. Does that resonate? The second thing that would come up is when I thought about leaving, when I thought about doing something else, I would immediately go to, does this mean I can't do this anymore? Am I waving the white flag of defeat and saying, this is too much, I can't do it? And does that also mean I've lost my ambition if I opt out of this hustle and overdrive and constantly being on? Does that mean something about me and my ability and my ambition and my future energy levels? Okay, the third thing. When I thought about leaving, I'd say, what would I even do instead? And this is what the number one question I hear from others too that I talk to. What would I even do? All I know is what I've done for the last 10 years. All I know is to take that resume that I've created and bring it to my next job. How do I even think about that differently? And then the last thing, this really hits. Do I even know what I love doing anymore? I used to use that as a badge of honor of like, I don't have a hobby. I don't have time for a hobby. Underlying that, I had lost what I liked in an effort to fit the job that I needed to do great at and respond to the asks that were being asked of me. I lost what I wanted, how I wanted to work, who I wanted to work with, what type of work. And I rode the high of delivering an exceptional piece of work, regardless of what it was. It was like, doesn't matter if you like this, I can deliver this and get really great feedback. And that was the high I rode versus the underlying, do I even like this? So let me know. So sit with that and see if any of those resonate, if any of those you're thinking through that, because I want to revisit each of those and reframe them for you in terms of what took me several years of this inquisitive curiosity, thinking, and also several years after leaving my job to sort of reframe. And it's been so comforting, and not in an excuse way, but like in realizing how my thought process was stopping me before. So let's revisit the gratitude. You should be grateful. You should be grateful that you have this job. There's 2 things I want to bring up for this. If this is where your brain is going, and if that term resonated with you, I want to bring up 2 things. One, this is the lighthearted one, but I think about it in terms of like your favorite dessert. So if you say somebody loves chocolate cake, and you are served chocolate cake, someone has made it but you love, I don't know, banana cream pie, and if someone is like, what? You don't love chocolate cake? This baker put so much effort into it. That has a very different feel. You can say, yeah, no, I totally appreciate it. I'm grateful for the work. But like, next time I think I'd prefer to order something different. That is allowed and accepted amongst us. But for some reason, when it comes to something that we've ourselves have worked really hard for, we can't give ourselves that gratitude and say, you know what, it's fine to change. And that doesn't mean you're not grateful for, what has been given to you, what you've earned, what you've worked for. You can change your mind. And the other thing I want to bring up for that too, if this is sitting with you and saying like you should be grateful and it's stopping you from making a change, I want you to think of someone that you admire, that embodies the traits that you would love to, they're super confident and they are energized throughout their day and they're happy more times than not when you meet them. And they just seem really like they know themselves and self-assured. If you think of that person in a role or feeling as you are, try and think of what they would do. Would they be like, you know what? I shouldn't go after my best, greatest, most, happiest, impactful self and choose based on that person. I should dim that light a little bit and just be happy for what I have. And in that regard, when I think of that woman that is the person that I admire and is living this just unapologetically happy, thriving, fulfilled life, they are more impactful. They are not shying away from, what doesn't fit them. They are not apologetic about it. And it doesn't mean that they're not grateful for all of the benefits that come. They are taking that gratitude and continuing to evolve and move forward. So just sit with some of that and see if that helps sort of reframe that in your mind. Okay, the second thing I want to talk about is ambition. This comes up a lot too. I used to think leaving meant I was giving up. I see it very differently now. Like, what if ambition isn't about climbing higher? A lot of times we tie ambition with like feeling like trying hard and feeling heavy and working through that. And sometimes in a, physical sense, if you're at a gym and you can feel like, oh, I just got to push through this, like I'm going to be proud on the other side. But oftentimes we can mix that up in our minds, especially with the culture that we've all been working within, that ambition means it needs to feel hard. And that on the other side of that, we're going to be extra proud of that. But ambition doesn't mean that you can never pivot. And saying that I'm now choosing something else, actually, what if that means you're moving towards something that is going to give you more energy? And it means you're going to feel ease and be able to accomplish way more. A lot of times we minimize our own skill sets and think that, if it's easy, we're not working hard enough. But when it's a natural skill set of ours, we can do it way more and way faster and way more efficiently and feel like time flies by versus others who may take a lot longer because it's just not something they enjoy. And so if you think back on your career and your history and you think about, all the times you've strived to get to the next level, yes, some of it was because you wanted that like feedback externally. We all still thrive or, have been taught to just this external feedback and somebody saying you did a great job. But what if that was paired with you also know you yourself have worked hard and you yourself have built up stamina and you yourself really want to continuously improve your life and get better and just trust that it doesn't have to feel heavy and hard to be moving towards something that lights you up more. And that as you do that, you're going to get more energy. And you're allowed to kind of pause and rest and relax in the midst of that. And that doesn't mean that you've lost anything. And that doesn't mean that you can't do any number of things, but you're choosing yourself. You're choosing your future energy. You're choosing your future nervous system and you're choosing your future happiness. And that can always be the case. Okay. Number 3 and 4, what would I do and what do I love? When I hear this, these questions aren't a real simple, fast answer. They don't get answered by thinking harder. They get answered by starting to pay attention. A lot of us are in reactive mode. A lot of us are just in a go, go, go. A lot of us are receiving a ton of feedback and we're responding to that. But we can't figure out what we love doing and what we want to do next by looking externally and asking someone else. We need to get really quiet with ourselves. We need to notice what lights us up. We need to know what drains us. We need to know what problems we're naturally gravitating towards solving. Clarity doesn't come from sitting still and just waiting. It comes from movement. And so if you're driving while you're listening to this, or walking or multitasking, just listen to this. You can come back to this later. But I want to dive into that question and really talk about the first 3 steps that I would recommend anyone do. You don't need to do all of this right now, and you can come back to it. But if you're somewhere you can pause the recording and write, I want to invite you to take a few minutes with each of these questions. And there's no right answer. It's just about noticing. So the first one, think about how you define your value. Not your title, not the company you work with, and not your resume, which is, for a lot of us, the easy, quick first answer. But if you can pause and write, ask yourself, what problems do people consistently come to you for help with? Your mind may first go to what, again, you would write on a resume and what your title is. But think of the problems that you're solving underlying those. You may be in marketing, but people come to you all the time to just help straighten out their thinking and think about like a project plan because you're really organized. Or people may come to you personally because you have a really good way of organizing your kids' schedule. Like, think of the problems you're solving. Where do you naturally bring clarity, calm, momentum to people in your personal or professional life? And what do people thank you for? Even if it feels super easy. And even if it's not what your specific job description is, what are they thanking you for? Thank you so much for introducing me to this person because I'm not really good at networking and you know exactly who we should be connecting with. So if nothing comes up right away, it's okay. Sometimes our strengths feel invisible because they've always been there. But I want you to pause and just start thinking about it and noticing when people come back to you and ask questions and what is easy during your day and what are the problems that you're solving. Okay. Action 2. I want you to separate what you're good at. So now what people are coming to you, what you're answering for them. I want you to separate that from what actually energizes you. A lot of times we get caught up in this circle, in this cycle of, I can fix that. I can do that. I can do that. A lot of us are generalists, even if we have a functional expertise. You can fix a lot of things. And this is what trips up a lot of people when they eventually, if they decide to leave and start their own business or solopreneurship, or you want to become a consultant or advisor, because you can solve a lot of problems. But does that actually energize you? Because you are going to bring yourself wherever you go. And so if you are in the process of taking on too much and not having boundaries and saying yes to too many things, you're going to continue to do that wherever you may go. So you need to spend some time now figuring out what actually energizes you. So again, if you can pause, reflect on this. What parts of my work leave me feeling more like myself, not less? When do I feel quietly satisfied? What drains me, even if I'm competent at it? So where does the time just fly by and you don't even notice it? Where do you feel like the time has just slowly ticked by? What are the activities you're doing during each of those times? Again, you're not deciding anything here. You're just collecting data about yourself and noticing. Okay, the third thing is think small. You're collecting data about the problems you're solving. You're collecting data about what energizes you versus what drains you. And now, small action steps. So think smaller than you even think you should, because this isn't about quitting your job or making an announcement or walking away from something. It's pausing and saying, what is one low risk step I can take to learn more about myself? What is one conversation? What is one question? What is one small experiment? And what's something that gives me information, not certainty? Because the goal isn't to be brave and just pick a date and leave your job or say, I'm going to start, applying for new jobs, despite what a lot of us want. Because that's running away from something instead of running towards the thing that will actually make you happier and more fulfilled, feel lighter throughout your day. So the goal is to stay curious. And so I alluded to it earlier. For me, that was listening to podcasts about stories about what others did. And it was having coffee chats with people who were doing something that I thought would be interesting and really getting underneath it. And it was thinking about roles or tasks or skills that lit me up and figuring out how I could bring potentially more of that into just my day or one project I was working on, and then sitting with that and seeing, like, does that fill me up? So one micro step, what is one small thing you could do in the next 4 to 6 weeks to say, did that light me up more? Did I enjoy that more? Or did it drain me? Because these steps aren't about forcing your clarity. And that's what we all look for when we go out. We're looking, what is the path? What is the quick path that I can get to say, this is what I want to do. This is the next job I want to have. Tell me the 5 action steps that I can get. It's about creating movement, because you're going to take yourself, like I said, wherever you go. And if you don't do the work now to understand what you want, you'll end up repeating that same pattern, just in a different place. So whether you stay, whether you go fractional, whether you start something on the side, or you move to another W-2 job, you deserve to be moving towards something, not caught off guard and forced to run away from something you hate because of the things that are happening in the corporate environment right now. So this is why I care so deeply about the work I do now. I don't help people quit their jobs. I help them slow down enough to hear themselves again, to understand your value, to build confidence in what you bring to the table. So the work I do is structured. It's gentle. It's a place to go deeper into each of these questions and to unpack what energizes you, how to rethink how you define your value, to explore what it could look like to monetize your skills in a way that actually fits the life that you want. So there's no pressure to make a decision, and the work meets you exactly where you are. If you want to learn more about my mentoring program that I'm launching in January, where we go deeper into each of these questions, you can find all the details at scalewithclarity.com/mentoring. And then if and when you're ready, we can start to thoughtfully build your next phase. Whether that's staying where you are and having more confidence in it and ready if something were to come up, whether it's creating something on the side that you can offset any of the turmoil that you might be feeling in your full-time job, or whether it's fully moving into fractional advisory work and designing something new altogether. That's the support that I like to provide, and that is only going to be unique and figured out by you. So like I said, you don't need certainty to move forward. You need permission. You need a way to explore what fits this season of your life and know that next season may be different. And if this resonated, you're not behind. You're just starting to pay attention. So I hope this helped. I hope that this gave you something to think about. I hope that this gave you knowledge that you're not alone in what you're thinking. And that small internal voice does not mean that you have to make any big decisions now or do anything different. But know there's a variety out there, and your skill sets, you bring so much to the table. Do not minimize that. It's really about you figuring out what you want to do and working through all those things. The business side of it is actually relatively easy once you figure out what you like, who you want to work with, the type of work you want to do. So reach out if you have any questions. Visit my website, www.scalewithclarity.com/mentorship for more information if you want to go deeper into any of these questions. I wish you all the best of luck. And my hope for all of you is that you find and build a future that lights you up and is aligned with the things that can make you the most impactful and the most happy and the most fulfilled.